Good morning. This is the session 6 of Mastering Inner and Outer Freedom, course 2, and second session of Introduction to Nietzsche's philosophy. And later on, we'll go into the book Zarathustra. But I would like to continue with the introduction to his philosophy, and so that you have a deeper appreciation of his work. Zarathustra is his masterpiece, but he has written several other masterpieces. And to understand his philosophy, you need to read many of others of his books, and Zarathustra may be the most difficult book to understand. And as you know, I usually assign the most difficult to understand book to people. And if the book, regardless of whether or not you can understand at your first reading, if the book appeals to you, then you are the reader of that book. And in my view, everyone in this course is Nietzsche's reader. The book has the subtitle, yes? Book for all, for none. No, a book for everyone and none, no one. But actually, he didn't write the book. Any one of his books are written for everybody. He was writing to some people. And the number of the some people has been increasing. But while he was alive, it was very small. In the part 4, he speaks to higher man. And they are the people to whom Nietzsche was writing. And you are each one of those higher people, higher man or woman. So we will continue with Nietzsche into Mastery Course number 3, where I will also introduce the work of George Gurdjieff, his major work, this one. Beelzebub's Tales to his grandson. But we will continue with Nietzsche and then gradually make that shift because after Nietzsche, only person I can think of to take us one step further, and that is Gurdjieff.
Yasuhiko, I was thinking about the similarity between the two books because I read this many years ago when you told us to read it, and
yes.
It's really there are some similarities in the
yes,
approach.
There is a similarities, and some of the unanswered questions by Nietzsche himself have been answered by Gurdjieff. So what Nietzsche was to modern philosophy, Gurdjieff was to modern spirituality. Anyway, with that preface, let me start giving you some of the key ideas that constitute the foundation of his thinking. And here's a quote from the book, The Joyous Science. Depending on the translator, it is called The Gay Science or Joyful Wisdom. He says this: God is dead, but given the ways of man, and perhaps for millennia to come, there will be caves in which his shadow will be shown, and we still have to vanquish his shadow too. God is dead, but given the ways of man, perhaps for millennia to come, there will be caves in which his shadow will be shown, and we still have to vanquish his shadow too. So today's session moves around this concept of God is dead. So in the previous session, we delved deeply into the concept of the will to power, eternal recurrence, along with amor fati, and Übermensch. And today, we will discuss the meaning and far-reaching implication of Nietzsche's famous pronouncement, God is dead, and his thought on good and evil and Christianity, or rather, or what the negative aspect of Christianity exemplifies. And before we discuss those of Nietzsche's key concepts and ideas, we want to look into Nietzsche, the man, the philosopher, and understand what made Nietzsche so uniquely Nietzsche. In my pre-session communication to you, I quoted Hermann Hesse in his Zarathustra's Return. I will repeat it again here. He says, Hermann Hesse says this: Zarathustra is a man. He is you and I. Zarathustra is the man for whom you are searching in yourselves. The forthright, unseduced man. How could he wish to seduce you? Zarathustra has seen much and suffered much. He has cracked many nuts and been bitten by many snakes. But he has learned only one thing. He prided himself only on one bit of wisdom. He has learned to be Zarathustra. And that is what you want to learn from him, yet so often lack the courage to learn. You must learn to be yourselves, just as I have learned to be Zarathustra. I means, in this case, Hesse. You must unlearn the habit of being someone else or nothing at all, of imitating the voices of others and mistaking the faces of others for your own. From a stone, you learn what hardness is. From a bird, what it is to sing. And from me, Zarathustra, you can learn what man is and what destiny is. So as the character of Zarathustra did and the Hermann Hesse himself did, Nietzsche learned to be Nietzsche. If Socrates' injunction, a Delphic maxim, was know thyself, Nietzsche's and Zarathustra's injunction was be thyself, or become who thou art, become who you are. So we want to know in depth who Nietzsche was by becoming who we are. So when you study his work and ontologically immerse yourself in his mind and soul, one thing becomes clear, and that is that Nietzsche reached a higher state of cognition and cogitation, awareness and thinking, rarely reached by human beings, even amongst the highly intelligent. And the opportunity for all of us is to reach the same level of cognition and cogitation that Nietzsche reached. Nietzsche was spiritually and intellectually enlightened. However, his enlightenment was incomplete, which will shed light to his mental breakdown. We will talk about this later. So to understand Nietzsche, we want to understand how he was able to reach the higher level of cognition and cogitation. We cannot just say, oh, he was a super genius. No, it is possible for all of us. And some of you may already have reached it. So I want to deconstruct his path through which he became awakened and why he was not able to actually go beyond that awakening after enlightenment and instead got into divine madness. So he became awakened spiritually beyond his intellectual enlightenment. Nietzsche doubted and questioned everything and rethought the philosophical thoughts and concepts of the past that were universally assumed to be true and therefore unquestioned or undoubted. He even doubted Descartes' doubt and his famous statement, I doubt, therefore I think, and I think, therefore I am, and asserted that Descartes hadn't gone far enough in his doubt, as he had left several assumptions and prejudices unquestioned. When I read Descartes, I had the same thought. Coming from Buddhist background, it was very easy to see. Nietzsche realized that, not having a Buddhist background. He especially questioned and rethought and re-examined everything revolving around three basic philosophical problems: God and religion, good and evil, and the human nature, and the meaning of human existence in the universe. Which was fully answered by Gurdjieff, but not by Nietzsche. So his commitment to questioning everything is fundamentally the same commitment at the core of the koan practice in Zen. There are two schools of Zen in Japan. One is called Rinzai, The other is called Soto, and Soto was founded by Zen Master Dogen. Now, in Rinzai Zen, koans are used as a primary method of spiritual awakening, even though today it is too formalized. And Dogen Soto Zen, all the critical questions arising in life is considered a koan, genjo koan. And formal koans, like what is the sound of one hand of clapping, are only used as a method of verification or falsification of the experience of spiritual awakening. So you deal with really your life's issue in Soto Zen. And through that, you have an awakening, and Zen master will use 300 different koans to check if you actually had an experience. So for Nietzsche, the philosophical questions he asked and the philosophical problems he tried to solve were koans in the true sense of the word, in the same way Dogen defined and used. And Nietzsche became intellectually and spiritually awakened through the process of solving koans for himself on behalf of humanity. Nietzsche's solutions were open-ended, and his questioning did not stop. But in that process of asking and solving questions, he attained a higher level of cognition or consciousness, just as it happens in Zen. Nietzsche engaged in what Dogen calls Hishirio. My translation of Hishirio is non-thought thinking, which is thinking that is creating, which is not form but function. So in Mastery Course 1, we came to realize to be free, we must be a free thinker. But what does it mean to be free thinker? And Nietzsche was quintessential free thinker. And that is an opportunity we have. So I want to get into this process he has gone through, and we go through in Zen training in becoming a free thinker. And Shurikant introduced us to Louis Sullivan's beautiful concept of form ever follows function. I'm going to use that a little bit to really dissect and deconstruct the process when people actually become a free thinker. So in the last session, we have discussed monistic pan-dynamism, which designates Nietzsche's and Boschkowicz's and Rudolf Steiner's and Walter Russell's cosmology and ontology. So according to monistic pan-dynamism, force is more primary than matter, which is aligned with Louis Sullivan's conception that function is more primary than form. So he says, form ever follows function. So Boschkovich would say, matter ever follows function, force. Now, thinking is function, and logic is form. And therefore, thinking is more primary than logic. That is, logic ever follows thought in the real thinking. However, this is not the case with programmed or conditioned thought, that is believing and belief, where the primacy of thinking over logic is inverted. Then, so start function, thought follows form, logic. And this inversion is inevitable because we learn mimetically. When we are born with this pure potential of intelligence. And in the beginning, we learn mimetically. We copy, we imitate. So the process of ordinary learning is the inversion of this primacy of thought over logic. And people stay there. So they stayed in an inverted state for the rest of their lives. And some people, the rare minority of humans, break from that mimetic learning and the mode of inversion. So in order to learn to become a free thinker, you need to unlearn the habit of thought following logic. And you think thinking into being. You need to create creating into being. So when you learn to draw a paint, you learn to copy the forms of objects, yes? When you become good at this, you become a superrealist painter. Once you master this, then you start to create forms, artworks, that follow or emerge from your pure creating. That is function. The true artist does not just copy. Once you learn acquire the skill to be able to copy and then really, replicate, inform whatever it is that he or she is sketching. Now, the true artists begin to sketch the image that he or she is creating. The same applies to thinking. So thinking is creating. Thinking is more primary than language and logic. This kind of thinking, which I used to call authentic thinking, Dogen called Hishiryo. Non-thought, which means formless thinking. So to be a philosopher is to be a thinker in this sense. And Nietzsche was such a free thinker. His term for the free thinkers is the free spirits who create new values and new philosophies of the future. So in the most fundamental sense, he is an invitation for you to become a free spirit in the sense that he defines, and become a free thinker so that you become the creator of new values, new philosophies, new ideas. In the most fundamental sense, a bridge to a new mode of consciousness. So it is the definition of Übermensch in some way. It is like a beginning stage. And Luciana and Walter guide Elena in that direction. And she will do the same with her children, and so on and so forth. And somewhere along the line, there will be a real breakthrough into a new mode of consciousness. We are in transition. So you see, the koan is a paradox, and paradox is a portal into new mode of cognition, consciousness, and therefore into reality. So koan is paradoxical, and it presents a dilemma, or sometimes even trilemma, unresolvable at the level of ordinary consciousness with a monological, binary thinking mind. Koan is therefore a translogical portal through which rationality becomes transmuted to transrationality, in which the system of dualistic binary logic becomes only a subsystem inside the greater, ever-evolving universe of thought. I'm sure Francois is very familiar with this mode of thinking, having studied great mathematicians. They are like harbingers of this. And paradox and dilemma are inherent in an unresolved problem that persists. And therefore, it presents an opportunity for the transmutation of rationality to transrationality, of monological dualism to multi-logical perspectivism. So logically unresolved problems are often the consequences of polarization that are unresolvable with the dualistic logic. And monological rational thought, seeing such problems of unresolved and unresolvable polarization as forms of paradox or koan, provide us with a perspective that opens up a new pathway that can lead to hitherto unfound solutions. So the famous logician philosopher Stefan Lupasco has shown us this through his quantum logic, that there is a higher reality and higher cognition or consciousness in which the apparent seeming duality is only a part of the Trinity. And Georgy Gurdjieff, a great mystic philosopher of last century, has shown us with his law of three, which he called the primordial cosmic law, that ordinary, spiritually unawakened, asleep humans are totally blind to the third element. Taoists would say that ordinary, spiritually asleep human beings are cognizant of the duality of yin and yang, but unaware of the Tao and ignorant of the complementarity of yin and yang. So Nietzsche was awake to the third element and higher reality, the Tao, and especially in the realm of morality. he demonstrated his understanding of his third, the higher perspective, as a title of one of his books shows, beyond good and evil. In the Japanese translation of this book, it's called The Other Shore of Good and Evil. They use the Buddhist concept of the other shore. And because of this title, I was very attracted to this book. And when I was in high school, I read that book. It was quite eye-opening. Now, one more thing. So this is the process we all want to go through. So you may have, you may be facing an issue in your life which is unresolved. You want to approach that as a koan, as a genjo koan, and analyze the inherent paradox or dilemma or trilemma that exist inside that program. And think through, number one. Number two, you want to examine your beliefs, which you take to be true, and you don't even question. You want to really ask yourself, is that true? So re-examination of your assumptions and beliefs and resolution of the persisting problems of your life or the issue of the society. Really think through, deconstruct. And if you take this task seriously, really, just Nietzsche did, you go through this questioning process and reach a higher state of consciousness. And this continues. When you get there, you may encounter another problem. Nietzsche definitely went through into next level. But the questions he was asking at that level wasn't solvable. And instead of moving forward, he actually went into the degenerative direction. One more thing about Nietzsche. When you study philosophy, you come across this. Nietzsche's perspectivism. Nietzsche denies absolutism and objectivism. Therefore, complete objective knowledge of the absolute. He claims that all that we can have are individual perspectives. And this corresponds to and merge with my own view developed independently of Nietzsche. And this, on the surface, sounds like a relativism. It is not the case. Look, people have perspectives, but those perspectives are actually inculcated into them. So a group of people have a perspective based on their beliefs. Beliefs actually provide perspectives. Whenever you assume in a physical position, you assume some position, you are moving in some direction. So beliefs and assumptions. So whenever you actually believe in some form of assumptions, you will have a perspective. But that is not your perspective. Came from your free thought. So Nietzsche, through his free thinking, he reached into his own unique perspective, original perspective. And that perspective is not only epistemological, it was ontological and existential. He found his place in the universe from which he sees the universe. So we are born as a potential cosmic singular destiny, but we became homogenized by our culture, and we adopt a belief and a perspective, and inverted state of form coming before thought. We will never be able, we don't come to the perspective that is cosmically singular for you. So Nietzsche's perspectivism combined with my own perspectivism, it is not just saying, it is everything relative and, people have different perspectives. When you become who you are, you become a singular cosmic perspective. You become an original perspective. This does not mean that you cannot have understand something cosmic, but you only understand within that perspective. So trans-paradigmic mind, you become able to go beyond paradigms, and you become multi-perspectival. You can take different perspectives, but all within your singular cosmic perspective. That is another aspect of being a free thinker, an awakened being, that you really become original and unique and singular. Tom and I had a 3-hour podcast yesterday in which we discussed some aspects of this. And one of the ways to differentiate authentic spiritual teacher from inauthentic one, the authentic ones, although in one sense they say the same thing, on the other, they always bring something original and unique. They are not copies of others. So Nietzsche was one of the first humans who developed the trans-paradigmic mind and attained a new, his own new unique perspective, which is beyond dualism, and they begin to look at whole history of philosophy and human thought and life in the universe. So to understand Nietzsche and his thought, we need to develop such a mind. transparadigmatic, and singularly perspectival. Sounds very paradoxical, but that's the case. And you don't need to be a super genius. In fact, maybe they became super genius for this reason. And as I said, when you become spiritually enlightened and awakened, initially through the paths of mind, such as via Zen koan, your consciousness reaches a higher level of cognition, which is more complex, but still mental. If you do not continue to vertically, so to speak, evolve in consciousness and not attain to the supramental state of consciousness and become centered in the spiritual intelligence, you begin to horizontally complexify your thought beyond the boundary of human mind. If you have the intellectual intelligence of Nietzsche, here real intellectual ability come in here. Without achieving a real greater degree of complexity in the higher order. So combined with his frail physical constitution, Nietzsche could not sustain himself in a healthy mental state. The result was what is called in the East, the divine madness. The same happened to the mathematician Georg Cantor. In the English way, George Cantor, who was born 1 year after Nietzsche, 1845. The originator of set theory, who had the vision of the infinite and transcribed that vision into his mathematical theory of transfinite numbers. He was in and out of mental institution. If Nietzsche or Cantor had a real spiritual master guiding him in the post-enlightenment evolution of consciousness, he might have been saved from his mental breakdown. There was an Indian sage, Meher Baba, a contemporary of Krishnamurti. One of his chief missions in life was to bring back those who were divinely mad to sanity. When he took on this mission, he stopped talking. So he remained in silence for decades. And then when he gave talk to people, he wrote in air. And people have to look and pay attention in silence. When I was in there, I read some of the note people took out of his invisible note. And funny, depending on the student, the note was different.
Did he bring anyone back from divine madness?
Yes.
He did.
Yes. 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 In India, you meet a lot of divinely mad people. Shrikant has to be very careful on this one. And Niresh. Now, this the same kind of a horizontal complexification thought on one level of consciousness with no vertical evolution of consciousness is done by great many people with lesser minds than Nietzsche. In fact, the academia and the intellectual communities are full of them. Fortunately, they are not intelligent enough to go insane. And unfortunately, they lack the intellectual courage to become spiritually awakened by going beyond where they are. So they stop evolving in consciousness and start indulging in lexical, linguistic complexification to play with their peers in their jointly made ivory towers. Have you read some of those writings in their peer-reviewed journals? Yeah, don't waste your time. It's almost incestuous. And really nothing there. And some philosophers do this, complexify. You see, being obscure is not being profound. Nietzsche is very clear. His writing is very clear. If it is difficult, it's because of the thought content is very deep and complex. Most people give up reading Spinoza, but if you are willing to go through it, it is clearly written. Same happens with Buckminster Fuller or Walter Russell. They are very difficult to understand, but it is clearly written. They are not trying to make it complex or obscure. So one of the ways to distinguish good philosophical writings from bad ones are the clarity. So don't feel bad about not being able to understand, but you need to really pay attention why it is difficult. All of the books I have assigned to people like Mira and Krista and Hideo and Joey, none of them are written to obscure. They are difficult because the thought contained was profound and complex. Mira still joke about the teaching of Padmasambhava, written by my mentor, Harvard Gunther. She says that she has a nightmare about that book. But nerd like me, I have a mental orgasm reading Buckminster Fuller, Harvard Gunther.
Padmasambhava was nightmare, torture.
Have you noticed? I have never put that book back into any of the reading list ever since.
But a nightmare could
That's
be a
funny.
part of awakening, Yasuhiko.
That was a hard book.
So far, so this is my summary of ontologically immersing myself in the mind of Nietzsche, and understanding him from within. And when you do that, understanding his books become much easier. And usually that's what I do with reading books. And most people are not worth reading too much. But some people you really want to read. Nietzsche is one of them. You can spend months and years. He's a fascinating human being. So far, any questions before we go into God is dead, but we are still alive? Okay.
Yasuhiko, I would just have to say that I always get these missing pieces that just explode my universe and how I perceive reality. And today, so far, and this is in alignment with the three favorite aspects of his chapters that really pierced me, and that is back to this singular monad of our original view. And it's like no matter what, it's like we have this sort of connection to the universe that is so personal and intimate and trustworthy that nobody can say, no, it's not, or yes, it comes down to what we are aligned with.
Yes.
So that's huge.
Yes, it is huge. So now, let's go into, so after the will to power, eternal recurrence, amor fati, and the Ubermensch. The concept of God is dead is definitely one of his key insights, and probably most well known as an expression. But significance and relevance and the extent of its influence is profound, profound, profound. And so many Christians or Jews or Muslims just superficially hearing God is dead, already they become anti-Nietzsche. And Nietzsche is one of the most spiritual philosophers of entire human history. And he had a profound appreciation for the Christ. So God is dead needs to be understood from that basic understanding of who Nietzsche was and where, when, and where he lived. So the God is dead. Rudy can correct me, or Walter can. He said, Gott ist tot, yes, in German.
God is tot. Tot.
Tot,
with
okay,
O.
tot, okay.
Tot.
So God is dead is a symbolic pronouncement of the crisis of consciousness. Nietzsche's pronouncement, God is dead, captures the essence of the crisis of consciousness that began in the late 18th century and became increasingly more pronounced through the 19th, 20th, and now 21st centuries. Schopenhauer may be the first philosopher to really kind of represent that tremendous, you can say more like a tragedy of being intelligent after the death of God. So his pessimism, really pessimistic philosophy, is a reaction to his tacit realization that God is dead. And Nietzsche studied Schopenhauer and transcended him. So now, the original breakdown of the bicameral mind 3,000 years ago was also the death of God, but it was the death of the polytheistic gods and the whole mentality inherent therein. So Bhagavad mind heard the voice of God, but there are many gods. There was no single unifying God. So after the breakdown of the Bhagavad mind, one of the things that happened with the new consciousness is that the humans created monotheistic God along with egological mind. So the breakdown of the egological mind that is taking place is tantamount to the death of monotheistic God and the whole mentality inherent therein. So gods died 3,000 years ago, and toward the end of 18th century, God died.
As Julian James said, the voices of the gods were silenced because they spoke directly to God, to the gods at that time. And then they could not, they needed intermediaries. Then this is the new ecological mind.
Yes.
3,000 years ago. Yes.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. And this breakdown of the egological mind was the egological mind's own doing. That's why in one section, there's a line, we killed God. Because first of all, the rational faculty of the mind brought forth the scientific revolution, and the worldview developed therefrom. The worldview developed therefrom dethroned God and mankind as the central locus of the universe, which really began with Giordano Bruno. But we call this Copernican revolution. Before Nietzsche, actually, Bruno and Spinoza, in essence, declared the death of God way ahead of their time by redefining what God is and presenting new visions of the universe and nature, radically different from that of Christianity. They didn't say God is dead, but they completely redefined what God is and how this universe is. Radically different from the view of Christianity and Christian theology. So, in essence, they also declared that God was dead. But it is Nietzsche who actually made it explicit. And this crisis of consciousness expressed by this sentence, God is dead, is an opportunity for the breakthrough to a new further evolution of consciousness and humanity on the one hand. But on the other hand, it poses imminence, a danger, in the absence of such a breakthrough. Just like 3,000 years ago, it presents an opportunity for new evolution on the one hand, but also it poses serious danger. If there is no breakthrough, there will be only breakdown. So Nietzsche was keenly aware of this danger, more so than anyone at that time. So the God that was pronounced dead, what is it? Is that God represents all that which humanity apotheosizes or deifies. The God that is dead represents all that which humanity apotheosizes and deifies. We hold whatever it is to be divine. The history of philosophy and human thought ever since has been a dialectical struggle between the evolutionary will to power of the rational, individualistic, internal authority oriented mentality and reactionary will to power of the vestigial, bicameral mind's external authority mentality. Since the birth of consciousness, existing ecological consciousness, philosophy and human thought represent the struggle between the evolutionary will to power of the rational mode, individualistic mode, internal authority oriented mode of mentality, and reactionary will to power of the vestige of bicameral mind's external authority oriented mentality. Aristotle and Epicurus, even more so, represent the first mentality of rational, individualistic, internal authority mentality, while Plato represents the second, reactionary will to power of the vestige of the bicameral mind's externally authority oriented mentality. People may say, oh, Plato was very rational. He was rationalistic. He rationalized. Whereas Aristotle and Epicurus reasoned. There's a difference. Nietzsche reasoned. Immanuel Kant rationalized. With the prevailing advent of Christianity, the Platonistic philosophy became predominant in the West until the Renaissance. The Renaissance was a revival, resurgence of the Aristotelian, Epicurean, rational, individualistic, internal authority-based mentality. Therefore, there was a surge of creativity. Then came the Reformation. The Reformation was the reactionary movement after the collapse of the Catholic Church's monopoly. Superficially, they went against the church, but basic mentality of the Reformation was the same. external authority, monotheistic God worship orientation.
So yes, can I ask a question?
Sure.
I'm a little lost, so I just want to, I'm trying to simplify it for myself to understand. So when you were talking about function being primary than form, this place that you're saying that humanity got stuck in was logic first. They were trying to take that through the lens of logic, right? And that's why it became dead.
That's a,
Is that, am I kind of?
That's a kind of interesting way of actually understanding this. I actually appreciate what you said. Actually, yes, yes. You see, initially, there are people called pre-Socratic philosophers. There are a lot of original thought came. They were thinking.
Right.
And then gradually it became more and more formalized. And then people became more programmed and then conditioned into this newly created mode of consciousness. You are right about that.
But so
yeah,
that's
again,
why it's
the
dead.
inversion took place. Yes.
So
yes,
is
yes.
that what you're saying? That's what I
Yes.
hear you saying.
Yes,
That's
yes,
why
yes.
it's
Yes,
dead.
yes,
So
yes.
if we're going to if we're going to approach life or live, or we think we're thinking,
Mhm.
but we're really logic first,
Yes.
then it's dead.
Yes.
The process is dead. We're actually,
Yes.
God is dead.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yes.
got it.
Yes. Very
Thanks.
well said. I like what you said, actually, Krista.
Okay, I'm a little
Yes, yes.
confused, but I'm trying to hang on
You
here.
know,
Okay.
same is true with the American Revolution. I mean, just jumping. But you see, the founding fathers are really thinking. And the thinking brought forth the Declaration of Independence and the US Constitution. And it became formalized. And the original thinking got lost. And they begin to think according to the logic and form established by the original thinkers who are revolutionaries. Thomas Jefferson thought that every 20 years or even one generation, they needed to re-examine and rethink and recreate new constitution, which never happened.
And so that is why we have the same, you're saying that dualism, the problem solution, right? Like just we look at this and there's no transcendence.
Exactly.
Because we're just looking, there is no doubt. It's just these two and there's no third.
Exactly.
So there's no evolving.
No evolving, no.
Right,
Yeah.
and that's why it's dead. Okay.
Yes. Well, in the Hindu philosophy and the Bhagavad Gita, you learned 3 gunas: Rajas, Sattva, and Tamas. You see, but we speak in terms of like a 3, but you know, Sattva is actually higher than Rajas and Tamas. It's like a yin and yang and something beyond. Depending on which Indian philosophy you use to explain this. But one way of explaining it is there's more consciousness content in Sattva than Rajas and Tamas. Same way. So long as we are stuck in this dualistic mode of thinking and not able to see the third, there will be no evolution. There will be no transformation. And that's what happened to French Revolution. French Revolution actually failed. And one of the critical reasons, there are many reasons, but one of the critical reasons of its failure was that its philosophical foundation was not as sound and was not essentially Epicurean Spinozist individualism like the American Revolution, but essentially Platonistic and Rousseauian collectivism. Rousseau was the most fundamental influence, and he was not Thomas Paine or Thomas Jefferson. Even Voltaire, actually. If they used the Voltaire instead of Rousseau, there may have been difference. And the scientific revolution and the worldview developed therefrom dethroned God and mankind as the central locus of the universe, as I said. However, the tremendous success of science and the subsequent advance of the techno-scientific world created psycho-spiritual and philosophical void, because the scientific worldview was utterly inadequate as a philosophy, because it did not provide answer to the questions concerning the meaning, value, and purpose of human existence. Newton's law of motion, Einstein's theory of relativity will not give you the answer to the purpose of human existence. And actually, out of science, the materialism really became the dominating philosophical idea, which is actually a form of metaphysics, but still it is a materialism. And interior dimension of human existence became basically, completely negated or ignored. So therefore, this lack of internal dimension, we can say, is one fundamental factor of the crisis and the danger. And so not only that, the rational scientific mind for most people was not free from the vestige of the bicameral mind. And scientists apostatized, deified science and scientific truth, which replaced God as the idol of the dogmatic external authority worship. Let me repeat, the rational scientific mind for most people was not totally free from the vestige of the bicameral mind. And the scientists, the intellectuals, apostatized and deified science and scientific truth, and replaced God as the idol of the dogmatic external authority. So Nietzsche wrote in one of the books, most complete, understandable book he wrote, The Genealogy of Morality. He says something to the effect that scientists, intellectuals, and scholars may not believe in the God of religion, but believe in the truth of science. That is to say, the scientist, while professing not to believe in metaphysics, still believe in metaphysics of scientific truth and truth versus untruth, which belief belongs to the domain of the metaphysical judgment, which is unprovable by science. So the death of God should apply not only to the religion, but also to science, that the scientific mind is not free of the vestige of the bicameral mind.
And this is used today by the politicians, because if you don't believe in science, for instance, if you question the vaccination or something like this, they say it's the same as to be an heretic 100 years ago. It's the same, exactly the same.
Yes. So this is shown in the dogmatism of methodological scientism and monistic materialism, both of which proves to be self-contradictory relative to their metaphysical assumptions, beliefs, and judgments. When Nietzsche first introduces this sentence, God is dead, is in the Joyful Science. And the title of that particular section is called Madman. And his audience was actually more like a scientist, not the people who are believers of religion. Because people who are listening to him, this madman, are making fun of him. So they are more like an atheist, making fun of, so what? So atheist has God in the way we define. So he is actually saying that God is dead for both theist and atheist. This entire mentality of belief and belief-based value systems. So if we capture this, the death of God represents the ending of the monotheistic God as the absolute external authority, whose function it is to be the ultimate value, meaning, and purpose giver to humanity. With the death of God, the human ego lost its place in the whole scheme of the God-created universe, including the meaning, value, and the purpose of life. Second, the ending of monological reductionist absolutism of all kinds, including scientism and materialism. Third, the ending of idolatry of all kinds, including the idolization of scientific truth. Fourth, the ending of the belief and the believing-based mentality as such. So, ecological consciousness came into existence in the silence of gods. A new mode of consciousness is trying to be born in the silence of God. But humans, for the most part, try to recapture that which is familiar and clinging to God as an external authority. Even if you become non-religious, and even you believe in atheism, you are still hanging on to this external authority, which somehow you idolize deifies, and apostatizes. You want to look at within yourself. You always have something like that, unless you have freed yourself. Rudolf Steiner's philosophy of freedom can be seen as a philosophy of freedom based on the pure internal authority, without the God of the past, and ethics and morality. So the death of God implies the death that is self-overcoming, self-surpassing, and self-transcending of the apostatizing, deifying mentality, mindset, and consciousness as such. It is good news in this sense. The death of God means that the death of the old mold, and therefore the self-overcoming, self-surpassing, self-transcending of the old mentality of some form of idol worship, which is the vestige of the bicameral mind.
If Nietzsche said end of idolatry, this would have been much easier for Christian and so people to accept, but would not be so provocative and would not be so strong.
Yes.
in the
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's what the woman in the film that you really liked, Yasuhiko, said at the end, is that if he could have been more clear and his sister would have been more clear, all the complications would not have been put out that way with Hitler and such.
Yeah, you see, Nietzsche was clear. And his sister completely misunderstood him. And you see, Nietzsche was intentionally provocative. And he was not writing his thesis to average humans. But obviously, average human will not understand. When you read the Dara Sutra, you can see his experience of not being understood and pure loneliness that he had experienced, even amongst the higher man, intellectuals and friends that he had. So the belief in religion and the belief in science both represent the moribund modality of consciousness. The death of God means the death of both the religious dogmatism and scientific dogmatism. This leads to nihilism, and nihilism or nihilism is an essential aspect of the crisis of consciousness. So in the final analysis, the death of God is a good news, a gospel. We humans are now on our own, and we must think ourselves and think for ourselves, and we must create values, meanings, and purposes for ourselves. We have an opportunity to be truly a free thinker and create our destiny ourselves. We can overcome nihilism by completely embracing the evolutionary path toward the Übermensch, each one of us. My translation of this term, the Übermensch, is spiritually and intellectually awakened and awakening human being.
I have a question.
Yes.
how much time and how many percentage-wise of humanity will achieve that. Realization God is dead and we on our own. Where we are at this particular moment, what do you think?
It's hard to say because when if you go into Facebook and Twitter, you say maybe 0%. But given the people that I deal with and you deal with, probably maybe like a 5 to 10%. Out of which who truly understand maybe less than 1%.
If it's true that we need 11% for the shift, then we are pretty close.
Okay, yeah, you're talking about critical math.
Yeah.
Well, if you include the entire 8 billion humans, maybe my estimate is a little bit too high. Yeah. It's hard to say, and I don't know if the 11% has any validity. But we will not really see that shift. Our job today, all of us who are born in the 20th century, we all old people. is to direct our own life path in the direction of the Übermensch. And some of us were fortunate enough to have had a spiritual awakening experience and can understand somebody like Nietzsche from within. We have a greater responsibility. Whenever you meet people who you can see are able to understand, you want to talk to them. The number is small.
That's why Nietzsche said not to go to your neighbor for entertainment or diversion of your own aloneness, but to choose your friend.
Yes.
And see the Übermensch, the Superman inside of them.
Mm-hmm.
Choose them wisely.
Yes. And people who grew up in Christian or Judaic or Muslim traditions, it is not easy to really free themselves from this some sense of deification of whatever what they call God and people like Christ and people who are from India. It is not easy not to deify Krishna. Yeah, some people actually deify Krishna. Yes, I noticed. Anyway, Krishna, or actually not deify, apostatize their gurus. Indian tradition has, guru-disciple relationships, and they put their gurus up there. You can learn from them, but you need to question what they are saying. Now, I'm going to share something.
It was easy in communism where I grew up. It was easy for people to get rid of religion, but just to replace the Communist Party as external authority.
Exactly.
It's like, you know, how you can just drop all of it
Yes.
and just be your own authority.
Yes. That is our challenge. And then our challenge is to, invite and assist people who are ready.
Can we take a break now?
Okay, we can take a break. And come back at 11:50 my time. Okay.
Hey, Krista. Hi, Yasuhiko.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are
Yeah.
you?
Yeah,
Could
last
we?
week I was a little bit ill, and then somehow after 3 days of resting, I recovered. Yeah, I have to be very careful what I eat and how I eat it. I'm allergic to so many things, and my digestive system is very sensitive. And Mira's food is so good. So sometimes somehow I let go of my discipline.
Lou, call me after.
Yes, Mira, sure.
I want to tell you some suggestions for the renting of Bocaina.
Great.
No, Mira, that is they don't need to rent it. You know, you and I move in there for 2 years.
Hey, Yasuhiko.
Hi, how are you?
Hello.
I'm well. I may leave at 10 precise. I have an I moved. Look where I am now.
Yeah.
I am here
Where,
Wow.
Yasmina?
in Yucca Valley.
Oh, wow.
So I moved 1 week ago, but it's still complicated to have the utilities and all. So I have an appointment at 10. And the guy is here for the gas stove. It's quite a mess, but it's really amazing. It's really
Beautiful place. Wow.
it's really really
Fascinating.
nice. Yes. And when you were speaking, there are rabbits, jackrabbits, quail. There is a roadrunner coming just beside me. It's crazy, yeah, and coyotes.
You know, Yasmina, and then Krista and Hideo, and then of course Ambika. You know, Southern California people. You should get together one of these days physically.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
not far from each other. You know, or you moved a little farther away than Malibu, but it's still not that far.
Yeah,
know.
it's 2 hours and a half, but it's nice to spend the day. Tomorrow, after the other appointment, I go to Malibu actually this weekend.
Yeah.
And it's not so far. And
No, not at all. And
Ambika and Krista, you are welcome to spend the day with me here.
Aw, thank you, Yasmina. That'd be great.
Yeah,
and you have Hideo if you need any heavy lifting.
Yes, perfect.
Hideo, where are you?
He's in the valley. I think he's in the
You
valley.
are?
He's in the valley. Yes.
Oh, I thought he was in Orange County.
No.
No.
He was always around here, yeah. He's in the 818 area code. How's that?
Yeah, but I talked to him a while ago and he was living down in, but who knows? But close
Anyway,
enough.
you know,
Close
yeah,
enough.
you guys get together, four of
Yeah.
you. It'll be fun to
Yeah.
do that. You know. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
yeah, it's really beautiful, and it's not so hot, but I have difficulties to deal with dryness. It's my body needs to be acclimated. It's I had Akima who is working, unfortunately, could not be with us. She told me when she left for Saudi Arabia, it took 6 months for her body to get acclimated. Dryness it's very hard. The eyes become really puffy because body protects the eyes, bringing water, you know.
Yeah.
So it's but the energy is very strong. I wonder, where do I get this energy to do all this by my own? It's unbelievable.
Wow.
Great.
We should visit you one of these days.
But it's really beautiful.
Wonderful.
And yeah,
So, you know, since you have only 10 minutes left, let me complete since Yasmina has only 10 minutes, let me complete a lecture section. I can't complete, but you know, go to some point. Okay.
Yeah, I have time. It's just I have to my 10 hours, my 10 morning, I have to be out.
You're 10. Okay, you're 10 in the morning. Okay.
Sure.
That's
yeah.
good. Okay, yeah.
So I wanted to tell you, Yasuhiko and
Yes.
Myra, if you pass by the area, you are welcome to come and even stay a couple of days.
Yes, we would love to do that.
Because I have room, you know. So You're amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, we are planning on visiting, Belinda.
Yeah.
So it will be like a 2 or 3 weeks trip. Go to the Northern California and then Southern California.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the part of the season now. It's also moving in hot season. It's quite hard, but it's never too hot here. It's the maximum is 103. So it's not
That
like
is pretty hot, actually.
no, but it's not hot like I was in Death Valley some years ago with a friend in July. We had 153.
53.
153.
Oh my God, that is
It
hot.
was crazy, and but this is supportable. I'm
Yes.
surprised to be able to deal with.
I don't know what is the best way, because there's a train, luxury train across the continent, and then actually extremely expensive. And plane, we kind of lost interest in flying, but plane. Or we can actually drive.
Drive is nice because you can really enjoy the road trip.
Yes.
Here for here the airport is Palm Spring. It's
Palm
like
Spring. Okay. I know where it is. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Like half an hour away, so it's not so far.
Palm Spring can get hot though.
Yeah, it's hotter than here. Here it's higher. We have snow in winter here.
Yeah.
So
good.
Yeah.
Higher altitude.
It's in meters, like 1,200 meters.
Yeah. Yes.
So it's high desert, and but it's a big change. It's in a way I wanted a radical change. It's totally the opposite.
From Malibu.
It's very interesting to experiment that. I wanted to experiment that before maybe quitting the US, to have this experience of the desert. But it's hard, but in the same time, it's different energy, very strong energy. It's powerful. So we'll see.
Yes, great. So we'll one of these days we will visit you. Okay.
Yeah. And Krista and Ambika, you can do a road trip together.
Thank you. And we'll bring Hideo. That would be great. Thank you, Yasmin.
Yeah, it could be very nice. Yeah, you can stay overnight. We can manage that, Could be really nice. We can hike directly from here. You see, it's really, and it's fantastic because it's 10 minutes from downtown Yucca Valley.
Great.
But yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
Nice.
I assume everybody's back.
Hideo, where is
So we'll continue on the same line, and whenever you have any questions or comment, please continue. So a few things I want to share still. So today, what is happening? There's something called transhumanism. And sounds like it is a very progressive movement, but actually it is reactionary. And the term transhumanism was coined by the great evolutionary biologist Julian Huxley in his book Religion Without Liberation, published in 1958. Let's see, he was born 1887, so roughly contemporary of Krishnamurti. His younger brother, Aldous Huxley, is much more famous. Aldous was born, I think it was 1894, so exact contemporary of Krishnamurti. And as a brilliant scientist, he was completely in alignment with evolutionary vision and theory of Darwin. In fact, his grandfather, Thomas Huxley, was Darwin's one of Darwin's best friends and very strong advocate of Darwin theory. So the Huxley family, this educated aristocratic family, they have had produced many great thinkers, and one of whom was this Julian. And as a child, he had this really deep spiritual experience being in church, listening to music and going through those rituals and looking at this beautiful architecture and art. He truly enjoyed that experience. And at the same time, he could not go along with the Christian theology as a scientist. So all his life, it has been a struggle. So as an evolutionary biologist, he was publishing many papers and developing his own theory. At the same time, he could not let go of this interior dimension of his being. And from this, he began to have this vision of, you can say, new philosophy or new science that contains both exterior and interior, and new kind of humans who is a integration of spirituality and science, intellect and spirit. And he called that a transhumanism, the new religion without deviation, transhumanism, and which is in accord with other thinkers, Smart, who else? Bergson, Pierre de Chardin, all in the same mode of thought, evolution of humans, not only the biological, but the spiritual evolution put together. And that brilliant vision of transhumanism was Julian Huxley's version of Nietzschean vision of human evolution. So transhumanism that is will be taking place in the future, which will bring about the new evolution of humans, will be just like the Übermensch. That beautiful concept of transhumanism has been hijacked by a group of technologically oriented people, starting from Max Moore, who was born in 1964. So he is in his 50s these days. And their version of transhumanism is technologically augmenting humans using AI, AGI, and adding chips into a brain and somehow increasing my memory. You don't need to study many more languages. You can just put the English chip and the German chips and so on and so forth. Somehow they have this vision of a cyborg, which is an advanced version of humans, which will live forever. None of us is against technology and the advancement of technology, but augmenting humans with machines and machine intelligence is not an organic evolution of human consciousness. You will become more intelligent on the same level of consciousness. So to me, this transhumanism, techno-transhumanism, is a reactionary movement. And they are turning machines and technology into God. Same mentality again. So the biological whole human system, systemic transhumanism toward the Übermensch has transmogrified into techno-transhumanism, in which technology and artificial intelligence are to be a new God. So Nietzschean nihilism is a major symptom of the crisis of consciousness and the breakdown of the rational ecological mind, the breakthrough from which will only come with the birth of new consciousness, which is free of the psycho-epistemological dependence on external authority and of apotheotic and deific belief and believing mentality. Augmenting human consciousness, human system with machine is not going to bring about a new consciousness. And it is a dependence on the external power. Same mentality.
Yasuhiko,
Yes.
those people like Jordan
Unmute,
Greenhall,
Luciana. Unmute.
You said new religion without liberation. Is that it? This will be the same, right? Replacing, in this sense that you're not.
But you see, in the case of Julian Huxley, it was transhumanism was scientific religion, spiritual science, scientific spirituality put together. The external, internal, matter and spirit put together, the new kind of religion, which is completely in harmony with scientific knowledge and scientific development. You understand? So he used the word religion, but it is more like a new kind of science, new kind of philosophy.
But why religion without liberation? That's what I didn't understand.
Revelation.
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 I understood.
Sorry.
Okay,
yes.
revelation. Okay.
Yes.
I thought you said liberation.
Sorry.
Okay.
R and L are almost impossible for me to distinguish. My tongue is not trained. So revelation. Yes. Yes. Okay, good. And then Rudy.
Yeah. It's. Do you remember Jordan Greenhall and those people?
Yeah.
They believed fully in this technological cyborg thing,
I know.
and that they would live forever or something. And I think they follow this line.
Yes.
And believe that this will bring the liberation to a new human being.
Yes.
Do you have still contact with them?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Yes. You know, advancement of technology is great. And if human consciousness evolve along with the evolution of technology, we will have an amazing civilization. And AI, I call it alien intelligence, or AAI, artificial alien intelligence, because it is silicon-based intelligence. Humans are carbon-based intelligence. So it is a totally alien kind of intelligence. They will be much smarter than we are in terms of computational intelligence. But the organic intelligence that we have are things that silicon-based intelligence can never have. And in the philosophy, the Charles Sanders divided the mode of thinking into three modes: deductive mode of logic into three ways: deductive reasoning, inductive reasoning, and abductive reasoning. Okay, and we know what deduction is, and we know induction is. Abduction is his new invention. But anyway, computers will do induction and deduction better than humans. But it is impossible for it to do abduction. The abductive reasoning is a kind of a you will kind of make up an opinion based on insufficient evidence or data. So you use your intuition and imagination to come up with some theory based on insufficient amount of data. It is a leap. And sometimes it is necessary for us to do. And computer is unable to do that. And if human beings can develop the imagination, intuition, in the context of developing one's singular intelligence, this abductive reasoning will become so acutely advanced that we will have a different mode of thinking, which has never been possible before. And that is alien to the artificial intelligence. So we can work together and see what we can do about this. It's amazing, amazing potential. But if you are going to put the chips into a brain, we actually depend on the chips. Therefore, brain is not going to evolve any further. And we want to have our human brains evolve as well as the technological artificial intelligence evolve. And we can have a very productive, powerful relationship with machines. And that is my own version of transhumanism. And one thing that I want to share with you that people who are talking about evolution of consciousness don't talk about. So when I say evolution of consciousness, what does it mean actually? In reality, what happens? What actually visible or detectable change happens in the human organism? It is not just a mental abstract concept. So going back many millions of years ago, Neanderthals and Cro-Magnons, we coexisted. Neanderthals had 5 chakras. Homo sapiens had 7 chakras. And the consciousness as the holistic function of this 7 chakra is much more powerful and advanced than the consciousness of Neanderthal. And so we basically overcame them, and Neanderthals became extinct. And Chinese acupuncture system combined them together. Acupuncture meridians go through those chakras. So when we say human intelligence or human consciousness, those etheric energetic levels are involved. So when consciousness evolves, those chakric systems also transform or change the mutual relationship, or new chakra shows up. Now, when chakra as an etheric energetic vortex, there are more than 7. But those 7s are most primary. As human consciousness evolves, other vortexes that have been secondary will become also primary. Then the mutual connection between those chakras and meridians will be reorganized to be able to host higher mode of consciousness. So from this perspective also, techno-transhumanism will prevent human consciousness, the whole system, from evolving. So we are in a transition, Homo sapiens transitus. And lots are happening in each one of us. If people who are in the ATCE 3, the members, I said 7 chakric system is inadequate to explain human beings. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Yes. And I said probably 9. And Gurujev was also aware of it. So he never really spoke about 7 chakras, and he had a different conception of moving centers and instinctive centers, sex centers, and of course, emotional centers, thinking centers, and higher emotional center, higher thinking center, all those things. It was like his centers are one step above, which means some chakras are working together to form a center. Yeah, so that's it. So it is on the basis of chakric system. Gurujev's centers are one level, evolved, or integrated, combined. So I do not know. I would love to meet him actually, but he doesn't get into 7 chakric systems like others, because I assume that he was also aware the old model of 7 chakric system does not really apply to the contemporary humans, you and me. And Ubermensch will have definitely 9, I don't know how many chakras will have. And their interrelationship will be pretty stabilized. So ancient 7 chakric mode of teaching will not apply to Ubermensch, nor to us directly. Except for Gurujev and the man who invented the human design system. I have never heard anybody talk about 7 chakric system being obsolete. They confirmed my sense. So evolution of consciousness involves all this: the etheric dimension, astral dimension, mental dimension, spiritual dimension. There will be a reorganization. We will have a new man, new woman, new human. And we are on our way. How long it will take, I don't know. Whether or not it will happen, I don't know. But if humanity, certain number of humans direct their life in that direction, probability of that happening is, I think, is high.
Yasuhiko,
yes.
Since you are integrating those knowledges that we saw together, I think Claire Graves and his tiers of evolution could be integrated into this too, because this would be a yellow and new colors coming or something like this. What do you think about it?
That is a kind of a different perspective to human evolution. And there's two different things: evolution in consciousness and evolution of consciousness. And I'm talking about evolution in consciousness and of consciousness. When the Übermensch come into being, it is an evolution of consciousness. The biological mind to a conscious ecological mind, it is a evolution of consciousness. And what Clear Graves and the spiral dynamics and Ken Wilber describes is a evolution in consciousness. It is not of consciousness.
Okay.
And there's a pattern in that evolutionary process. As far as I know, not Clear Graves, of course, but Ken Wilber had this, evolutionary model. It goes way beyond but it was like a speculation, and it is along the same line. So it is important to really make a distinction between evolution of consciousness and evolution in consciousness.
Thank you.
So far, so good. Okay. Let me just briefly touch upon about his notion of good and evil, and his criticism of Christianity. And some of you are Christians, and on the surface, Nietzsche can be offensive, especially to Christians. So after the Zarathustra, he wrote a book called Beyond Good and Evil, and that's where he goes into the idea of transcending duality of good and evil, amongst many other things he wrote. And then he wrote another book, which is the most conventional style of philosophical writing, The Genealogy of Morality. There he really deconstructs the Christian morality and severely criticizes its negative impact. And he never criticizes Jesus Christ, except for one thing, which is in the Zarathustra. He was too young. He should have waited a little longer before he began teaching. That was the only criticism he had of Jesus Christ. And he also says there was only one true Christian, and he was crucified. He died on the cross. So anyway, so transcending the dichotomy or the duality of good and evil, and thereby thinking beyond the mode of thought according to binary logic, was the main current of his philosophical thought. So in the past, it was always good and evil or good and bad. But he was looking at them one step above, just like Lao Tzu did. So not only good and evil, he has actually, questioned the duality of appearance and reality, will and reason, or true and false. So he criticizes the very idea of contradiction in the binary logical mode of thinking. And more importantly, he criticized this atomistic thinking. You know, I talked about him criticizing Descartes. I doubt, therefore I think. And I think, therefore I am. Now, I is an entity in this conception. And there's an assumption that there is an I that is thinking, doubting and thinking. And Nietzsche questions that mode of thinking itself. And he says, I don't think he read Buddhist scriptures. And so I was quite impressed. He said, it is more accurate to say there are thoughts, there are doubts, than to say, I think. There's a thinker or doubter. There arises thought, there arises doubt. That is more phenomenologically correct. And inherent in Descartes' thinking is that, you know, I, something like I actually exist. And going back to this pan-dynamism, so atomistic need is this, you know, so Hindu thought also has an atomistic need, Atman, which I think has a direct etymological connection to Adam. So Atman, you see the self as an entity, Brahman, an entity. And he questioned this what underlies our mode of thought, an atomistic mode of thought, an atomistic need to have an entity. And one of the most revolutionary aspects of his thought, which is not very talked about, I haven't seen anywhere, which was influenced by Boscovich. Pan-dynamism transcends this atomism and atomistic need. Massless force, function, becoming are more ontologically primary than mass, full, matter, form, and being. So becoming is more fundamental than being. Function is more fundamental than form. And massless points of force are more fundamental than massful matters. This is at the foundation of mode of thinking that we are habituated. Harvard Gunther called this thingification. You thingify things. And one of the greatest contributions of Buddhist thought, long before Nietzsche, Boscovich, or Walter Russell, they saw becoming as more fundamental than being. And becoming, so when they say nothing, they're basically saying no thing. It is not a thing. It is not an entity. Primary, the most ontologically primal is becoming. And being comes after. Ontologically, and what he is saying, epistemologically, we need to conceive of existence as such. So look, our logic is constructed with this atomistic mode of thinking. A and B, A is equal to A, or A is equal to B. A is not equal to not A or B, and nothing can be A and B at the same time. It's all Pascal's quantum logic. A is A only once. The next moment, it is no longer A. So there's no identity. And it is actually a continuum. So nothing is A or B. A, B, and not A, or A, and not A, continuum. And continuum is more primary than this continuum. Walter Russell tried to say this in many ways, one of which is in the wave lies the secret of creation. And duality of a wave and particle and quantum physics, that wave exists on the same level of cognition and reality. And the wave of Walter Russell is actually the wave, the mutual interaction of force, which shows up either as a wave or either as a particle. So it is a primordial wave that comes before the wave, quantum wave. That was in a different way of saying, but that was what the Boscovich discovered or figured out. And Nietzsche got it. So will to power is actually a verb. It is not a noun. I asked, Rudy, the power in the original German is a verb. Can it be seen as verb? And he said, no, it is a noun. And so in the language wise, it's a will to power. It is a power is a noun, will is a noun, will to power. There's a little bit of movement, because will to power, there's movement. But it is more like a verb. And that's why Buckminster Fuller, also who was aware of this, said universe is more verb than noun. We come across the difficulty of talking about this because we do not have language constructed out of this. But I think you can get this, yes? So good and evil, beneath this is this atomistic mode of thinking and dualistic mode of thinking that enclose us and bind us in a very monological paradigm out of which we don't find any escape so long as we stay the same. And then and in this, good and evil are relative. Two people running for the office. Winning of A is good for A and bad for B, and vice versa. Depending on the perspective or relatively, good and bad changes. And I will say, oh, what an evil person and what he is doing evil. But as far as he is concerned, what he is doing is good. And we are evil. Actually, the so-called bad people actually invented the concept of evil and used that word to describe the good, formerly good people. So again, we need to go back into that way of thinking, the thinking which is function, fluid, moving, dynamic, willing to powering. And when you see this, there is good and evil dichotomy exists in one layer of reality in which there is no winning, and in which both are relative to each other, depending on to whom it applies. But when you expand your vision and free yourself from the duality and free yourself from atomism, you begin to see something entirely different. That's not what he said in the book, but I'm kind of deconstructing his book without giving any conclusion that he reached. One of the greatest books ever written. Actually, he wrote several of the greatest books ever written, and definitely Beyond Good and Evil is one of them. So most fundamental lesson we can learn from Nietzsche. You see, I am not interested in teaching Nietzsche or anybody, actually. I am interested in our transformation, our evolution, and what we can learn from those people. So Nietzsche have reached many different conclusions. And with some of those conclusions, I may not agree. But what led him to that mode of that conclusion, what led him to ask the questions to begin with, that mode we can learn. Same is true Dogen, and same is true with Bhagavad Gita. We want to get into the soul of Nietzsche and individualize it to ourselves. And so he wrote Beyond Good and Evil from there. And philosophically, it is a very challenging book, and it's extremely interesting to read. I think I will reread it again one of these days. Another book which he wrote after Beyond Good and Evil is called The Genealogy of Morality. And genealogy is not history, it is a family tree. So you can write a history of morality, and then you have to deal with Christian morality, Buddhist morality, Taoist morality, Hindu morality. And that will be a history of morality. And he limited to Christian morality. That's why there's a genealogy of morality. So it's basically the most predominant morality in the Western civilization, in particular at that time in Europe and United States. And he categorizes morality into two. And one is a morality primarily represented by the Greek. And Nietzsche was a Greek scholar, a philologist, and he was intimately aware and knowledgeable about Greek culture and Greek literature and Greek philosophy, going back all the way to Homer. And master morality is, or sometimes called noble morality is a morality of the strong, the powerful, the competent, the winner. It is the morality of the aristocrat. So the morality of the strong and the powerful, and moral virtues were that which made them strong, powerful, and competent. That is to say, they self-confidently consider themselves to be good. What is good is, I am good. And what is my virtue is what makes me strong, powerful, and confident. So virtue is the power, strength, excellence, and competence. So and that good is what is desirable, obviously, and bad is what is undesirable. Bad person is weak, has no power, incompetent, and loser. So good person who is a master, a nobleman, is competent at gaining and attaining the desirable. The bad person, slaves, is incompetent at gaining or attaining the desirable. Good person has the power to exercise his or her, in Greek times, unfortunately, it was only his, will to power unhindered. Bad person lacks such power. Master morality, practiced correctly, engenders the morality of individual self-mastery and character development. So today we severely criticize, a society that has slaves. So, but you just set aside contemporary prejudice and just bring back yourself about 2,500 years ago. So society was that. And aristocrat, real aristocrat, consider themselves to be good. And good meant powerful, strong, competent, and excellent. And able to achieve that which is desirable. Able to exercise the will to power to increase his or her own power. And those people who are not like them, they consider them bad, not evil, bad, weak, incompetent, and not able to exercise their will to power unhindered, and therefore unable to obtain what they desired. Bring that into context, today's context. Being good is to be powerful, to be strong, to be competent, to be excellent, to be able to achieve what one wants to be able to exercise one's own will to power unhindered, to gain or attain the desirable. And virtues that is required for that is developed intelligence, developed individuality, developed responsibility, developed intelligence, developed authenticity, developed honesty, developed integrity. Those are the virtues that make it possible for you to be a noble man, practice noble morality. So I'm saying practice rightly in today's society without having any master-slave social structure. Individually, it is a pretty evolutionary morality. Evolutionary means it enhances you to evolve. And another morality category was he called slave morality. That's very famous, yeah. And let me read a little bit. His criticism of Christianity. Christianity at once produces and is the product of religious neurosis by inverting the order of values of the strong with the weak, the natural with the unnatural, and the life with anti-life. Now, what he means is this is not a really exact quote, I just put it together. So slaves who are powerless and they don't get anything they want. There's a profound resentment. And out of resentment, they have inverted this good and bad and label themselves to be good and good, noble aristocrat as evil. Christian morality, slave morality based on the inversion of master morality. So the lowest, the worst, the least competent, the weak, who cannot satisfy whatever it is that he or she wants, are actually good people. So it is a metaphysical, psychological revenge against the noble, because they cannot revenge against them physically until communist revolution came along. Therefore, Christian slave morality is based on resentment. And Christians and the Jews made a virtue out of their lack of worldly power possessed by the Romans, who are in charge of the world. According to the Greco-Roman master or noble morality, the Greek and Roman noblemen or aristocrats, the strong and powerful were good, while the Jews and Christians, the weak and the powerless, were bad. So slave morality is the inversion of master morality arising from resentment and envy. The weak labels the good of master morality as evil, and bad of master morality themselves good. Slave morality was the metaphysical and mental revenge of the weak against the strong and the powerful. against whom they could not take revenge physically. The powerless of this world, convinced, which means self-deceived, actually more than self-deceived, deceived themselves that this worldly power was not worth pursuing, and claimed that they possessed other worldly power, which was of real value. The powerless of this world, convinced, deceived themselves that this worldly power was not worth pursuing, and claimed that they possessed the other worldly power that was of real worth. So there is no value, no real value and meaning in this world where they are weak, powerless. The real value exists on the other world. And we good people possess the other worldly value. When we die, we become triumphant in that world. So we suffer here, then we triumph there. So in slave morality, evil equals good of master morality, which is strength, power, excellence, and competency. And good and virtue equals the weak, incompetent, meek, and humble. They emphasize this virtue of meekness and humble humility. And even today, you can criticize somebody, he is arrogant. And when you meet somebody who is humble, who looks humble, oh, he's a virtuous man. It doesn't mean there isn't real humility, but it comes as a consequence of you being honest and in integrity. It is a consequential virtue. You cannot directly pursue and have humility. Actually, really humble people will never even talk about it. So you see, resentment. Nietzsche uses the French word for resentment, and I don't know how to pronounce it, but it is spelled a little bit differently. How to say resentment in French, Rudy or Francois?
Ressentiment.
Okay, yes, sounds like it. I heard that before. So throughout his writing, he never used. He always used that French word in German too, I think. But there's a slight difference in meaning from English to this French, or maybe I don't know about German. But resentment is the psychic force motivating the revenge of the weak against the strong through the slave morality, in which the notion of good becomes inverted. Now, so the genealogy of morality has three essays, a collection of three essays. The first essay is about resentment. He goes very deep. And second essay is about bad conscience, which is almost like a guilt. But because he used guilt in an original sense, like an owning a debt, he used bad conscience because it is development of guilt from the original to the contemporary use. So along with this resentment, the slave morality has two other elements that makes it so negative. And one is this bad conscience, more like a guilt. The bad conscience is the innate cruelty of man turned against himself or herself. When the custom and morality prevent man from expressing it externally. And he is saying that human beings have the animal cruelty still within, and there are many different ways of sublimating the cruelty. But in slave morality, it turns into bad conscience, and you torture yourself. In the conflict between strong and powerful, between the aristocrats, if one party uses the dogma of slave morality better than the other, not only toward the weak, but also against a powerful opponent, that party will win by having more devoted army and by weakening the opponent. This happens, you can lay guilt upon people who are strong, and you can weaken them. And using this slave morality, and you become a leader of the slave morality, which was what the Roman Catholic Church did. You will have an army of people who follow you in war. You can die easily because the real value of your life is not in this world. It is the other world. And if you die for the holy cause, for your country or for your whatever, that death will definitely put you in the right place in heaven. You will triumph.
Always behave now, reward later.
Exactly. So the Catholic Church gained both religious power and political power by using slave morality towards and against all, the powerful and the weak. They became the political and religious power structure for actually few centuries. No? So you see, so you have resentment, then you have this inner animal cruelty. And today, people express that maybe by watching boxing match or some sports, very brutal sports or professional wrestling, whatever. People kind of release it. People used to watch Gladiator. How they release their inner cruelty by substituting themselves with those gladiators. In the slave morality, that cruelty, you turn against yourself and you torture yourself. And it becomes a virtue. This happens in India too. Many of the Indian yogis, they torture themselves. I have seen many of them actually. Shocking. Somebody was lying on top of the nail, and some people worship this kind of person as a yogi, holy man. And that leads to the third element, third essay, in which he talks about aesthetic ideal, ASCETIC, aesthetic ideal. Well, you can see the connection. Aesthetic ideal in the genealogy morality, Nietzsche starts and ends the whole book by this statement: man, the humans, would rather will nothing than not will at all. So this aesthetic ideal esteems and praises the Hinterwelt. This, I think, is correct German pronunciation. Hinterwelt, beyond the world or other world. This world should be discarded as evil at worst and irrelevant at best. This world should be discarded as evil at worst or irrelevant at best. So you torture yourself, you suffer, and you torture. You suffer. But life is intrinsically contains suffering. We go through experiences that are, almost unavoidably suffering. But slave morality superimposed upon that natural life suffering that we all go through, struggling. If you are, on the path of self-overcoming and self-transcendence, you intentionally suffer. You have a higher goal, you go through a discipline to suffer. The suffering is intrinsic to human life. But then slave morality superpose on top of it man-made suffering. And the man-made suffering is this aesthetic ideal that life based on this, the life living life in accordance with this morality and suffering has a meaning. The more you suffer, the more you torture yourself, greater the reward in the other world. This world is like a prison. And if you suffer more and torture more, you get to be released from this prison sooner than other inmates. And in heaven, you will have a triumphant life. You see, so slave morality gave slaves the meaning of life, of being a slave. And glorified suffering and self-torture. The people who can torture themselves the most are the most holy people. And this slave morality sustained itself beyond Christianity. communism, socialism, and fascism, all forms of totalitarianism, which are secular, is a Christianity without God. It has, and the state taking over the place of God.
Yasuhiko, can we say collectivism is a form of slave morality?
Of course. And democracy, so-called, is a form
because
of
this is collectivism.
You know, I want you to, each one of you, just reflect within yourself. So, slave morality has prevailed over master morality to such a degree that the people who are gifted, who are privileged, who are actually, winners in life, in whatever, they feel almost a compulsion to have compassion for those people who are less fortunate. And if you're exceptional, you feel guilty for your exceptions, and you become very nice to those people who are average.
We Brazilians like to be nice people. Yes, you know this.
Yeah, I was quite sick of it.
Yes.
Brazilians almost outdo Japanese.
But you
Being
know,
nice.
his bestowing virtue, that chapter 22,
Yes.
talks about the religion of knowing your true nature.
Yes.
And then you just have to overflow and share that.
Yes.
So rather than, niggling around in, oh, I'm so, compassionate for your victimization, you say, no, you can be your true self.
Absolutely. But you see, blessed are the meek. And anybody who is self-confident person may show up as arrogant, and then immediately you are criticized. And you can see within yourself how much of the slave morality has influenced your psychology, really. And all of you are very, definitely above average people, at least. Many of you are gifted people. So you can see the slave morality may not apply to you as a slave, but somehow it applies to you as a human being living in this collectivist society. Do you see that within yourself? You have so you are afraid of people. If you are superior, better, smarter, more gifted, more successful, have more money, whatever, you are afraid of people's resentment against you. So you do something, you be something, and somehow minimize their resentment. You behave very humbly. You become very nice person. You don't express your self-confidence, whatever you do.
You are confident, but also you are very courageous.
Yeah.
To be you.
Yeah. So you
that
see,
is required.
Yes.
Tremendous courage, because mediocres will attack you so viciously that I mean, this is so obvious in our society.
Yes. You see, you can see even more so than the time of Nietzsche, the slave morality beyond Christianity has taken over the whole of human world. And the early conditioning of humans involves training and conditioning and programming young mind with slave morality. How many people grew up with saying, you know, rich, having a lot of money is not good. Rich, having, being arrogant is not good. Being proud of one's accomplishments is not good. So on and so forth. Blessed are the meek. You are such a humble person, that's good. Luciana is so smart, but she is so humble. She's such a nice person. She is so compassionate. Part of her personality is being nice. Luli didn't do as well in being nice to other people. But,
That's the past.
Good for you.
See.
Good for you, Lou.
Sorry, I'm, you know, sometimes pick on people. So you see, Nietzsche is criticized as elitist. And he says this: my interest is, this is my word translating, it is, my interest is human evolution. We must evolve. It is a pure expression of will to power, evolutionary impulse. Given that, why we should be paying so much attention to and pouring our love and compassion to the weak in such a way that weak feels good and weak can stay weak. We must pay more attention, pour our energy and resource to actually pushing the strong to become even more strong, so that they can actually self-overcome to become the Übermensch. And this will actually help the weak also. But this really goes against the almost contemporary moral philosophy. And American Revolution was basically organized, and this country was founded by those who are, in a true sense of the word, aristocrat, free-thinking, strong, powerful men. However, they made a mistake of adopting slave morality of Christianity. Even Thomas Jefferson, who did not accept the Bible, accepted the moral code exemplified by the life of Jesus Christ, which was significantly altered from the real life of Christ.
But at the context of the time, if they would have done differently, they would not have succeeded.
Well, they could have at least created a strategy for it, which they didn't do. You see, there's in such a small minority of 3 million people, probably real core, like less than 50. To make this happen, you need to have significant amount of support from people. So they compromised and worked with Christians who want religious freedom. And once country was established, the majority of people who are religious took over the country within 1 century. Religious in the sense of, organized religion, slave morality religion, not the way Christ lived or Buddha lived. So, my friends, we have a challenge. You and I, who are free spirits, we must continue to expose the hidden fallacies of the past, just like Nietzsche did, which include our own religion, in my case, Buddhism, and to a lesser degree, Taoism. Those of you who grew up in a communist country, of course, you need to criticize communism, which is not that.
Atheism too.
Atheism, yes. And to create new values and philosophy. Actually, new values and philosophies, because each one of us need to create them. We need to continue the task that Nietzsche embarked upon, all on his own, alone, into the future. Of course, he has some notable predecessors. Spinoza is one. Bruno is another. And many of the founding fathers of the United States and maybe I will include Emerson and his friends in the United States. Any question? As I said, probably we want to continue with Nietzsche because there are other books that most people would recommend that you read the Zarathustra at the end. Read other books. But I suggest you read through, and even if you don't understand everything, because this is the first book to read, there are many differences he makes that you cannot know. But if you go into his soul and read the book from within, the essential part of points that he is making in this book, you can fully understand. And then you read other books and add more and more. So maybe we'll continue because it is so important to fully understand and appreciate Nietzsche because he is us. He is us who are committed to mastering inner and outer freedom. Any questions or comment you want to make?
Well, may I say something?
Of course.
I would love to go deeper into the slave morality and
Yes.
potentially that's explored in the genealogy of morality, that book. Is that the book? He's okay. Oh, okay. So yeah, as you were talking about
this is
that.
not the best translation, by the way. I actually have a good translation in PDF form, but genealogy of morals or morality.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
just from a personal level, speaking for myself.
Okay, so I will tell you this.
Yeah.
So I suggest you complete the Dara Sutra, not just once, but few times. After a second reading, I suggest you read maybe, yeah, this is okay. The joyful wisdom, or another translation, the joyous science, or gay science. Today, because of the gay has a connotation, so, you know, I don't think it is good term anymore.
Okay.
It was good before. And then you read the Beyond Good and Evil.
I have to wait all this time before I get to the book that I want to read.
No, you do whatever you like.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Beyond Good and Evil.
Okay.
And Genealogy of Morals. And Twilight of Idols and Antichrist. And if you are even more interested, you want to read this book called The Dawn of Day. This was when it is like his new beginning. This was dawn for himself. Many of the concepts that came after he began to have this dawn of the day, this was the beginning. But there's the joyful science, Zarathustra, Beyond Good and Evil, Genealogy of Morals or Morality, and are maybe the 4 essentials. And Twilight of Idols are short. You can really read in one sitting. The Antichrist is also short. You can read, and it was like so. Beyond Good and Evil and the Genealogy of Morality, he elaborates on the ideas on the Zarathustra. And Twilight of Idols and then Antichrist, he takes the ideas further. And he was going to write his magnum opus. And he titled that as the Will to Power. But he has to give up, and then he went mad. And that book, eventually they collected all of his notes and made it into a book. And I like this book because it was like his notes. You can really get into his thinking and then play with it. So I like this book personally. And that is maybe the last book you want to read. And the Antichrist was supposed to be the first chapter of Will to Power. And the reason why he was not able to write or complete Will to Power, and the reason why he went mad at the same, he could not have a breakthrough there. he had an attempt, but he couldn't have a breakthrough. And obviously his physical condition had a lot to do, because in order to move your body, the chakric system needs to be working very well. It's amazing he did that, you know, with his frail body. So I think I will start Mastery Course 3 in September. And I will introduce this book. These are the tales to his grandson.
Yeah.
I count this book as one of the most remarkable books I have ever read in my whole life. It will always occupy top 5. But we will make a transition. And in between July and August, I'm absolutely happy to have this kind of a Zoom meeting once or twice, if you want. And we can discuss anything we want. Nice to have the continuation. And I will maintain post session 6 thread in the email where we can discuss. Okay, some people wrote something. Anybody who wants to share something, and we will close the session.
Enjoy the summer.
Okay. All right. Since everybody is speechless.
Craig has his hand raised.
Who?
Craig.
Craig, please.
Okay, sorry about that. I had it on mute. Yeah, I just want to comment. This was a great session, and I mean the whole slave morality, master slave morality stuff is pretty fascinating in our current culture. You know, it's quite common, you know, working with children, to see parents kind of stuck in that dynamic with their kids, right? Because they're always forcing them to do stuff, and then they get frustrated when they don't. And that back and forth really is pretty clear. So I think parenting is a pretty good area where you can express like healthy, constructive lifting up of your children by not
Yes.
imposing on them, right? And not getting stuck in that cycle of resenting your own kids because you're trying to get them to do something that's unnatural for them.
Yes.
Anyways, great session, Yasuhiko. Really appreciate.
You know,
really
it is
appreciate this a lot.
As Mira said, it is courage is essential virtue. Essential virtue. And your kids need to be somehow inculcated, and they need to become a risk taker, which means you need to take a risk with your kid.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know what? It's probably that's the challenge with my son that I've been given, that I've been handed, because he's not a natural risk taker. So it's my challenge to try to encourage that in him. But at the same time, like he's incredibly focused and can concentrate on things that he likes for long periods of time. But again, very adverse to risk. So
Yeah, we have become extremely safety conscious, and
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But it is the safety of a slave.
Oh, for sure, absolutely.
Yeah, safety of a slave. Well, Chris, I changed my mind. Since you are interested in slave morality, why don't you just, start to read Genealogy of Morality?
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
Then go into Beyond Good and Evil.
Go back. Okay.
Yeah, and then and then do whatever you like. Those are
Okay.
books,
Rebecca has a hand.
And switch them around.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Rebecca wants to say something.
Oh, please, Rebecca.
Don't be a slave, Krista. Do whatever you want. See, start from that.
Love it.
Rebecca, please.
Yes, thank you, Yasuhiko, so much for these last sessions on Nietzsche. I found it incredibly personally supportive for that courage that you speak of. And the video that Belinda had suggested was really useful because for me, to have the human relationship in the mix is really important. And I went on to watch the movie When Nietzsche Wept. There's a dramatization of his life that's up on YouTube as well.
Okay.
There's something familiar about this period of Nietzsche's life, I mean, leading up into the Second World War that, we can sort of feel is palpable in the air right now.
Yes.
And something about learning how to stand alone and how to think alone. And that slave mentality is so fascinating the way you put it, because it's so useful to self-regulate. As soon as you've got it in your system, you apply it to yourself. And so it was really useful to hear that, to sort of loosen up from that even more and dare to be bigger. And when I think just tying it into the Nietzsche's phrase of God is dead, if we take the idea that, if God is dead and there's the resurrection is within us now. And, we are becoming gods in ourselves. That slave mentality has to go, because in order to really be the I am that I am, this is the place to move that resistance. So that was so helpful to have that dialogue.
As Belinda often say, being the artist of your own life, you become a creator. You create your way of creating, and it includes your own philosophy, your own value, and how you relate to people. Everything is become your own creation because you are God.
Yes.
Yeah, and it is actually extremely exciting. Most people are afraid, but actually a very exciting place to be.
Yes, because it asks us to challenge just about everything that we've known. Even for example, something as simple as our relationship to money. That we've been trained in all these ways to think that there's a lack and we have to keep running after it. And then what if we let that go? What happens then if we have a different idea about where money comes from? So I've just found it really personally strengthening this conversation, and Nietzsche has become an important person now to reflect on.
Yes. He is extremely relevant. He is our friend.
Yes.
Nietzsche talks about a friend, and he is our friend, truly. Yeah.
I would not have understood that before, but being an Australian, we have maybe more than in America, what's called the tall poppy syndrome, which is anyone that grows above the rest, we want to cut their heads off. Yes. And of course, what happened to Jesus wasn't really a good image of what can happen if you be an artist in your life.
Yeah.
So
it's nice to have a support system like this. This is a group of non-joiners.
Yes. Of tall poppies.
Yeah, exactly. In Japan, we say the nail that come out of the, they get hit. How do you call that? 벼르크기에 우타르. It is like when your nail stick out, you get hit. That was the same saying.
And in Chinese too, they'll say if the grass grows too high, you cut it down to make it even.
Yeah, exactly.
And Yasuhiko, I'd like to
That's
point
universal.
a really
Yes,
good
please.
joke. Sorry, you said a really good joke before, which I think everybody missed, which when you said that the man lay on the bed of nails, he was a holy man. I thought that was very funny.
Yeah, it was very funny. Yeah, but that is the epitome of slave morality. Epitome.
Yes. Thanks so much. Thank you.
Thank you. So we
Yeah.
shall meet again very soon.
Can I say one thing?
Yes, please.
Today was really, really intense and also so very beautiful and uplifting in different ways. And it was difficult for me to stay present and focused today. I kind of fell asleep. You have this beautiful quality of going so far in that it sometimes does that. Because yesterday, when I woke up in the morning, I was pulled so far inside me that I spent the whole day like that. And it was, the texture was different. The senses were different. Nothing outside mattered. And when I finally decided I had to run errands, it was so clear, everything worked out just as I had wanted it to be. So no time was wasted. I came, I found the right parking, and it was so amazing. I'm still having a little trouble coming out, but yesterday was amazing. I just sat and I read what I wanted to read. I wanted to read about ancient cultures and ancient lands, and it was all showing up for me to read even as I typed it in. And that's when, when we are kids and we are growing up and we know what we want to do and we see all these things, then we get pulled out into doing what we do. But those still remain with us. We never lose that. And now when you re-see it, it has a different life. And I really loved that going inside. And it wasn't, and it's so vast. It's so vast, that whole universe. And you can go anywhere. And it was so complete. And for about 3-4 weeks, I don't feel like eating. So sometimes I'll eat a little bit, but I have no desire to eat. I should be losing some then in that case, but that hasn't gone. But no, this world inside was so amazing yesterday. And today again, it's like I'm hearing things and then you say this beautiful thing and I want to hear more and my mind has gone in. And something else when you said, that logic thinking and that other natural thinking, is that what happens when thoughts and visions are just going through you anyway? And then you bring your awareness to that. And then you're caught in that other one with something you read or something somebody says, but it doesn't make sense because this other seeing, thinking, feeling is so much richer and it takes you everywhere that everywhere is kind of vague, but you know what I mean.
Yes.
Because you see and feel those realities.
The original thinking, which is a function, is like one layer of the flow of feeling. It's like a feeling and thinking goes together. And using Mira's favorite terminology, the higher frequency aspect of the feeling is thinking. And there is no contradiction between your feeling and thinking when you are thinking.
Right.
And so also your state of your emotion is higher and higher vibrational. And it is, so you begin to have an experience of thinking, which is quite amazing.
And you don't get caught up in the sensory aspect or effect of those. It's really your whole being.
Yeah. Yes.
So it's also the place of revelation.
Yes.
And
It's the way of his creating one.
Yeah.
Chapter 17, which is that singular, unity that you are, which takes that aloneness, that deep aloneness, in which you have to create to not go insane. But to create, you've got to be alone, and to find that vertical of and live it.
I forgot to tell Krista, she is gone.
I'm here.
Oh, you're there. Okay. There's 80 discourses. Some are long, some are short. And Nietzsche calls the discourse of all the new law tables, which is on the part 3, considered to be the most important discourse of old and new law tables.
I opened right to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is not necessarily my most favorite discourse, but it brings so many elements together in one discourse. So just wanted to say, if you want to get the whole thing, read this. This is like a summary version of everything that is inside. Yeah. Okay.
I think we are very lucky that we can think together and not go insane like Nietzsche. At least we have each other for support.
We'll all go insane together.
Maybe we already are.
It's really, and so you go back and forth between those levels of thinking as experience, experiencing them. That's natural to so many of us.
Okay, my friends.
And enjoyable being with all of you.
This has been a very enjoyable 6 months, and those of you who want to continue, will continue.
Okay.
And,
Yes, we will.
Okay,
we'll
thank you,
enjoy
Yasuhiko.
each other's company. Yes, there are so many things I can say, but maybe this is it. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Love
Bye-bye.
you.
Love you all.
Thanks.
Thank you, Yasuhiko.
Thanks a lot. Yeah,
And
Yasuhiko,
that's
it's
what
been
just
great.
showed up towards the end.
Thank you.
Krista,